Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this afternoon's webinar with Grey Matter and CyberSmart. Thank you very much for registering and attending. Today, we're going to be introducing CyberSmart and its end-to-end assurance, both in the realms of Cyber Essentials certification and cyber insurance that can also be provided off the back of the product as well. Wanted to start the webinar by introducing Grey Matter. If you're not familiar with us and you're a new customer of ours, we are a software reseller and cloud service provider focused on supporting technology-led companies. With over 40 years of experience, and we're part of a bigger organization called Climb Global Solutions. We host offices in UK, Canada, Ireland, and the USA. And we offer a vast catalogue of solutions from leading, emerging, and niche vendors and specialist teams in security, Microsoft licensing services, and mapping. Our objective is to help you exceed your technical and commercial objectives by consistently delivering industry-leading service with care, accuracy, and speed through knowledgeable and empowered people. And this breaks into our specialist solution areas, so dev tools in design, build, test, deploy, and collaboration capabilities. IoT, or Internet of Things, with a Kickstart program via Microsoft, cloud services, mapping, and dev tools. Via mapping, we help with mobile SDKs, business intelligence, fleet and logistics. On the security side, we can help with pen testing, health checks, awareness training, endpoint and network protection, backup and recovery, plus code security. And we also cover areas of hybrid working with IT support, IT management, mobile device management, remote desktops, virtual conferencing, and e-signatures. This is a spotlight on some of our key vendors that we work with and we have partnerships with in the UK and Europe and beyond. This is only a small list of the many vendors that we can provide both information, guidance, and pricing for. Generally, I like to say to customers, if there's a need, generally we'll like to go out and see if we can fill this for you. So never be afraid to email in, speak to your account manager, because there's a promise that we can probably go out and find some pricing or provide a solution as well. I think it's worth, before going into the CyberSmart guys, is to talk about the cybersecurity landscape in its current format. This year, a report has already been, should we say, generated about what's predicted to happen over the next 12 months and moving forward. Ransomware is definitely on the rise again. Well, not just your traditional forms of ransomware, AI is being utilized more and more to generate malware or malicious programs that actually adapt to people trying to circumvent detection or remediation of the actual malicious program. So ransomware on the rise, but a very frightening format, with it being able to fight back almost, and not quite that way. It's not quite Skynet just yet, but it's moving in that direction. Incidentally, the power of AI, I've already touched on this, but it's already come up in the news this year. One of the more significant breaches of cybercrime that has occurred was someone faked a conference call with a financial organization in China, managed to AI deepfake 3 different people, both voices and images, and managed to get away with nearly $25 million in terms of a financial payment. So AI, whilst it does have its benefits and its uses via things like Copilot, people are using it for malicious purposes and cybercrime to get money, or maybe social engineer, present themselves as someone at the business when they're actually a fake version of someone very high up. And it's still a problem that we still have a lot of home workers, so devices that might not be locked down are exposing data to the outside world. So again, all of these together, early detection is key. And whether that be employing software solutions in your business to help get there early, to help monitor and defend the outer edges of your infrastructure or your business is key, but also a product like CyberSmart and actually getting a good set of cybersecurity, should we say, rules, policies, and posture that is standardized and proved to be an effective defense are going to help you achieve that as a business. And incidentally, that's why we partner with CyberSmart ourselves. It gives us a great added value for our clients. They constantly improve and expand their product lineup. They offer a very, very quick response to our licensing and technical queries, and they work very closely with the cybersecurity solutions team at Grey Matter to help our customers understand and see where this will fit in at the businesses and how it will fit them. And this is where I graciously stop doing my sales pitch and hand over to both Adam Pilton and Lawrence Kia, both at CyberSmart and Brigantia, who are our partners with CyberSmart Distribution Partner, and let them talk about the product in more detail and their view of the inside threat currently.
Perfect. Thank you, Scott. Thank you. So Scott said, my name's Adam Pilton. I'm a senior cybersecurity consultant here at CyberSmart. My background is in law enforcement. So I was a police officer for 15 years prior to moving across to CyberSmart. And in that time, I worked for both Hampshire and Dorset Police. But latterly, I led what was known as the Covert Operations Management Unit. Now, the Covert Operations Management Unit is 3 distinct teams. They're the Covert Authorities Bureau, responsible for obtaining legal authorities or lawful authorities in relation to covert activities. So things like RIPA or IPA, which is more commonly known as Theresa May's Snoopers Charter. The other team is the Communications Data Investigators, and these are responsible for obtaining data from the likes of our local telephone providers, BT, Vodafone, similar, but also internet-related data, so from the likes of Facebook, Google, Apple, etc. And the final team, you may expect, the cybercrime team, responsible for conducting cybercrime investigations, but also responsible for conducting digital inquiries in more traditional investigations, ranging from anything from harassment all the way up to murder. So as you can imagine, during my time within the police, I experienced a lot of different things. And one of those cases I'd like to speak to you about today. But I'm also going to speak to you today about a survey that CyberSmart conducted with Censuswide, where we spoke to 1,000 UK SMEs, their decision makers and their senior leaders. And we asked them how the cost of living crisis is impacting those. And there's some really interesting results that we came across, and I'm going to share those with you today. So without further ado, let's take a look at the investigation. So the initial report to the police was very minimal in detail. In effect, an email had been received by the entire company from the CEO, and the email itself was derogatory about an individual member of staff. Now, this email was particularly rude and vicious towards this individual, and it clearly wasn't sent from the CEO, or at least a CEO that wanted to remain in position for much longer. And the message itself was signed off with the phrase, "Your friendly CEO," which isn't a phrase that this CEO used. And the CEO now found themselves locked out of their account. So I was told at this point an internal investigation had been commenced. It would take a few days until I'd receive the results of that initial investigation. However, one thing I want to point out at this point is that the company were in an absolute state of panic. They had no idea who was attacking them, why they're being attacked, how this hack had even happened, and probably most importantly, which was causing the fear, was that they didn't know if there was more to come, if this attack was actually over. They had no preparation made for it, no planning in place, so they were learning as they went. So a few days passed, and the internal investigation was forwarded to me. And this was conducted by an outsourced IT company that was already with the company prior to this incident. And they identified that an admin account had been used to reset the CEO's password. Now, it's worth noting here that this admin account wasn't officially a recorded admin account, and it had been created over a year ago. So in effect, they had no idea that this admin account existed on their network. The IP address used by this admin account was shown as an O2 cellular IP address. So just to be clear, when I'm saying it was an O2 cellular IP address, when the attacker, the cyber criminal, logged into this admin account, they used O2 mobile data, in effect, the same data that we'd use on our mobile phone. So they used the O2 cellular network. But finally, someone within the company found a historic email. And this had been sent by the now ex-IT manager, and it used the phrase, "your friendly IT manager." So at this point, I've reviewed the information, and I've got 3 suspects. These people are the only people with admin access, both now, at the time of the investigation, and historically. And they're the ex-IT manager, the CEO, and the current outsourced IT provider. There was nobody with any known motive to want to cause harm to the CEO or the business. Interestingly, and importantly, the IT manager had left their role 2 months prior to this. And the CEO, when I spoke to him about the ex-IT manager, advised that the departure was difficult, and although it was a mutual decision, he wasn't fired, it was a case of jump or be pushed. And again, the CEO gave me little insight into the ex-IT manager and shared many instances of strange events whereby the IT manager was involved. And this included, bizarrely, a burglary that had happened some years ago in which the IT manager was actually on the site at the time. And going back to that burglary, no wrongdoing was actually found, but there was always a sense of distrust around this ex-IT manager. So upon hearing that, I decided to focus my investigation on the ex-IT manager. I needed to either prove that he was responsible for this or disprove it. So I started off by identifying a telephone for the ex-IT manager, obtained this from the company, and then I obtained data on it via the communications data investigators, my team. And this showed me that the phone number was still active, it was still live, been paid for, and it was registered to the ex-IT manager at his home address. Exactly what I wanted to see and what I expected to see. But most importantly, it was using the O2 network. If you cast your mind back, we recall the O2 network was used to access that admin account. So I continued my investigation and I looked at the business account, that this ex-IT manager had legitimate access to. Things like e-commerce cloud services that he was using whilst in the company, so company owned essentially. And I could see that he was logging in from his home IP address, as well as using IPs from the O2 network. Logins were at all times of day and night, suggesting that maybe he wasn't always working. Interestingly though, I saw a significant amount of orders had been placed over time. And as I dug into those a little bit deeper, I found that although business accounts and business funds were always used to pay for these orders, they weren't always for work purposes. There were some really high value orders placed for hardware, such as GPUs, which were over £1,000 each. But when I dug deeper, I could see no audit trail for where these items were located. And the CEO wasn't able to confirm either. Essentially, they'd been bought by the company with company money and disappeared. But there was one particular order that caught my attention. Now, this was out for delivery on a Saturday when the offices were closed. The only person around was the on-site security guard who had taken possession for and signed for it. And I could see that from the order tracking. I went and spoke with the security guard and had a look at the security guard's logbook. And he showed me that on the day in question, that the IT manager had turned up, spoken to him, left his mobile phone number with the security guard and asked that he be called when the order had arrived. And as you'd expect, that mobile number was the same as the mobile we mentioned a moment ago. Security guard confirmed on the day the parcel arrived, he signed for it, which we could see already, and he called the ex-IT manager, who came down, collected the parcel, and took it away. So I've now gone from having 3 suspects to having a prime suspect, the ex-IT manager. He recently left the company on relatively bad terms. He had the capability to create additional admin accounts, as he already had admin access, so creating those additional accounts was no problem for him. He had access to an O2 phone, which tied in with the attacker's O2 IP usage, as well as the habits that he'd already demonstrated on cloud accounts that we looked at. And the IT manager had demonstrated his dishonest character when he purchased the additional equipment that wasn't for the company. So I took the findings to the company. I informed them what the investigation found. The IT manager still had access to the company network, which was actively in use and had not been detected. There were no controls in place to flag this unusual activity, such as the external access or accessing outside of normal working hours. The fact the admin account existed for over a year without being identified. A privileged account sitting dormant for over 12 months. A lack of policies and procedures which prevented any form of accountability. As we discussed, the expenditure was not accounted for. The ex-IT manager was able to buy things for over £1,000 for his own personal benefit, and nobody noticed. And this clearly in itself highlighted that there was no offboarding in place. The ex-IT manager's accounts weren't reviewed, his access wasn't reviewed, hence him still being able to access the company network. So, the outcome. So you all expect me to say that I arrested the suspect, put the overwhelming evidence to him, and he's since been convicted by court, never to work as an IT manager again. Well, that was my plan, but unfortunately that didn't happen. The company decided not to take any action, as they didn't want this case to go public, as in they didn't want to go to court. And they didn't want to receive any bad publicity from this, for their lack of controls and their poor IT security. Now, although I understand why they took this decision, I've got to admit, I don't agree with it. The companies protected their interests, but failed to protect everyone else's, including people on this call. Now, they also don't know the full extent of what has been happening. What had the IT manager been doing? Was he working with anyone else in the company? They will never know. And the IT manager has a clean criminal record. And concerningly, potentially for everyone in this call, is that he's available for hire. But for me, the most intriguing thing was, why did he do it? Was it spite? Was it money? And this is where our stats come in that I mentioned earlier. Although we'll never know the specifics of what this IT manager was thinking, our stats do shine a light on what senior leaders within the UK SMEs may be thinking. So I mentioned earlier the survey that we worked with Census-wide on. We spoke with 1,000 senior leaders and decision makers from UK SMEs. There is a blog post discussing this upon our website, but we want to understand the cost of living crisis and how it's impacting these SMEs. And we found that nearly half of UK SMEs believe they're at a greater risk of a cyber attack since the cost of living crisis. 40% of employee salaries have either stayed the same or reduced. And over 1 in 5 small businesses are either worried about the survival of their business or expect to make a significant change in order to survive. So unexpectedly, businesses are feeling the strain financially and are aware that financial decisions now could impact their cybersecurity at a later point. So we asked, since the start of the economic crisis, are you at greater risk of malicious or negligent insider threats? And 73% said yes. So we decided to dig a little deeper. 17% believe employees will seek to harm the company's reputation due to resentment over salary cuts and layoffs. 20% believe employees would steal data from the company in order to sell it on. And 22% believe employees will be more likely to make mistakes, such as clicking on a phishing link. And for me, these stats demonstrate a real lack of trust. And for those of you aware of the Douglas McGregor Theory X, Theory Y, you can see how this may become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So we decided to turn the tables a little bit. And we asked the senior leaders and decision makers, would you engage in bribery? And 7% said yes. We asked, would you engage in a cyber attack on a rival? 10% said they would. So we asked, would you commit fraud? And 15% said they would. Now let's just take a moment and look at these. Each one of these is a criminal act. And these decision makers, these senior leaders, will ask these questions for the purpose of a survey, a moment of calm. There was no pressure on them at this time, and they knew their answers would be seen and would be reviewed. So those numbers surely would only increase if people found themselves in a situation in threat whereby potentially fraud would help save their business. But each one of these would see you serve 10 years imprisonment. These are UK senior leaders and decision makers. They're not drug dealers, whereby part of the business model is that you risk going to prison. They're running UK SMEs. Now, clearly, they need a better plan. But what can be done? So employee training and awareness. Training everybody about the types of threats, particularly insider threats, and how to recognize and report suspicious behavior is key. As we saw earlier, 22% of leaders saw clicking on links within emails as a threat. But if we provide training and increase that awareness, people within the organization will start changing that culture. Promoting a good cybersecurity hygiene, unique passwords, the importance of locking workstations when away, access controls and monitoring, implementing the principle of least privilege, granting employee access only to the information and systems necessary for job roles, and audit them. Make sure, whether that be quarterly, monthly, whatever works for your organization, making sure that you have the correct controls in place. And finally, implementing clear policies and procedures. Now, this will ensure that people have clear guidance and are accountable for their actions. And this in itself creates trust. Essentially, we know what is right and we know what is wrong. And one thing I will call out here, after the scenario we've just gone through, is it's vital to include instant response procedure for when an incident happens, because it will happen. And in that, must include an emergency communications plan. Now, in the scenario that we just looked at, the investigation architect did, if they had an effective instant response procedure in place, this would have streamlined a lot of the initial decision-making and allowed the full focus of everyone involved to be on the incident in hand. But they didn't. So I'd like to bring you some final stats. And we know that the cost of living crisis is impacting businesses and employees. And we know that business leaders that we've spoken to, at least, have shown their willingness to break the law. But interestingly, they view their staff with a clear lack of trust, seeing them as potentially the greatest risk of a cyber attack. And the case I investigated is one of many such instances where a lack of policy and procedure left a business exposed. So implementing basic controls will ensure businesses are safeguarded from significant amounts of threats. As you can see here, 50% of SME leaders have increased investment in cybersecurity since the cost of living crisis. But 13% of these have no policies at all. And 76% of companies that recognize former employees as a threat have no clear offboarding process. Recognizing that they have no offboarding process, but understanding the threats that they've also demonstrated is not a position that anybody should be in. So, Cyber Essentials is where this brings me to. Hopefully on your screens, you can see the first poll question. Are you Cyber Essentials certified? Yes or no? Everything that I've been speaking about before leads us to Cyber Essentials. Cyber Essentials is essentially the basics. And I'll just give this a moment while the answers come in. See, we've got a few more to come in. Perfect, right. Thank you very much. Okay, so we can see on this call, 57% of people listening are Cyber Essentials certified. So you will understand some of what we're going to talk about, but there's areas as well I'm going to cover that may be of interest to you, or certainly will be of interest to you, particularly in relation to this CyberSmart and how we can help you achieve that ongoing compliance. I promised a second poll question. Are you looking to achieve Cyber Essentials or Cyber Essentials Plus? And for those of you that answered yes, please answer this question in relation to renewals. Are you looking to renew? Again, I'll leave you a moment to answer the question. So are you looking to achieve Cyber Essentials or Cyber Essentials Plus or renewal? Perfect. Thank you very much. There we go. And 100% yes. So you're all on the right call. That's what we like to hear. Okay, so let me explain. Some of you will understand what Cyber Essentials is, having gone through it already. Others may not be 100% clear. So I will cover this briefly before we move on to dig a little deeper. So Cyber Essentials has been around now for 10 years. So government-backed scheme started in 2014. And the way I describe it to people is it is essentially getting the basics in place. It is step one in your cybersecurity journey. It is essentially getting the basics in place so that you are no longer the low-hanging fruit which cyber criminals love to find. And it's a certification process. It's designed to help organizations show their commitment to cybersecurity as well, while keeping it simple. So anybody should be able to answer the questions within Cyber Essentials. Whether you've got the controls in place is another matter, but anybody should be able to read and understand what is being asked of them. Now, the National Cyber Security Centre annual review, which from 23, which came out at the end of last year, told us that over 140,000 Cyber Essential certificates have been awarded since the scheme began. And data suggests that 80% fewer cyber insurance claims are made when Cyber Essentials is in place. In 23, they saw a 21% increase in certificates issued and a 55% increase in Cyber Essentials Plus certificates issued. And the key stat for me that came out about Cyber Essentials is that a large proportion of customers, just over 60%, reported having learned something new about their own cybersecurity from implementing the controls within Cyber Essentials. And many of the people answering these questions were repeat customers. And this is, for me, where a lot of the value comes in Cyber Essentials, in that it gives you that moment to reflect on the basics of your cybersecurity. As I say, start that cybersecurity process, that journey, whether it's step one for you or whether it's the ongoing compliance. But what is Cyber Essentials? I've mentioned Cyber Essentials and mentioned Cyber Essentials Plus. Now, Cyber Essentials is in effect a self-assessment. It covers basics such as firewalls, secure configuration, user access controls, malware protection, and patch management. Now, this is all signed off by someone senior in the company at board level to confirm it's all in place. Cyber Essentials Plus is essentially a verification of what you've said. So it's a fully audited assessment where you'll work with CyberSmart, and individual users will join our call and we'll conduct tests on their machines to confirm you have the relevant controls in place. But interestingly, why do we need Cyber Essentials? Now, I won't cover all 10 of these reasons. So if there's anything in particular that people are interested in, then please do put a question in the chat, and Lawrence and I will pick that up. But I will call out a few then. I'm going to start with number one, enhanced cybersecurity. So as I've mentioned, Cyber Essentials allows you to get those basics in place. It's the start of everybody's cybersecurity journey, or at least it should be. It's going to enhance your knowledge of your own security, and it's going to help you identify where your strengths and your weaknesses lay. But it will help you to further open your eyes to the reality of the threats that your businesses face. And it's also going to help you understand what assets are critical to your business and make you think about what would happen if you lost those, whether that be for hours, days, weeks, or even if they were totally destroyed or taken from you. So we look at number 3, competitive advantage. Now, I've seen time and time again that having cyber essentials when a competitor doesn't can be the difference in obtaining or winning a contract. And quite often we'll have customers that come to us wanting to retain cyber essentials and are trying to get it done really quickly just so they can meet that deadline for the contract. But one thing I would highlight in terms of contracts is in October last year, 23, the government issued a procurement policy notice. And this is in response to the ever-increasing risks associated with our supply chains. And the government essentially said that in-scope organisations must ensure that effective and proportionate cybersecurity controls are applied to contracts to mitigate those risks. Now, in-scope organisations are government bodies such as the NHS and those that work with them. So if you're looking to or are currently working with the government, you will know that you need to have some forms of control in place. And the government has said the quickest and most effective means of mitigating risk associated with such contracts is for technical requirements to include either Cyber Essentials or Cyber Essentials Plus certification. So it's worthy of noting that, albeit a government scheme, this is a scheme that will allow you to work with government agencies. The Cyber Essentials is a moment in time assessment. As we said, it's a self-assessment whereby you declare the controls you have. But as we all know, as the days, weeks, months tick by, things will change. So in order to maintain compliance, you have to be putting systems and processes in place to ensure ongoing compliance. Now with CyberSmart Active Protect, we can deploy agents to your laptops, computers, tablets, mobile phones to ensure that ongoing compliance. Any misconfigurations are highlighted. Any vulnerable software is highlighted so that you can act upon it. One of the things I particularly like is our smart policies, our policy management. So we provide templated policies that you can adapt for your business, things like incident response, which we mentioned earlier, information security policies, data protection policies. But we also allow for you to upload your own policies. And the beauty with smart policies is that these policies for a user, they're always on their screen, viewable. You read them on your screen, you then select agree. When a new policy comes out, you will know if you have or haven't read it. And on the flip side, managing those policies, making sure everyone is up to date with the latest information, you have one dashboard where you can view who has read and agreed to those policies. And I mentioned that one dashboard, not only do you see who's read and agreed policies, you will see which devices potentially pose a risk to you, whether that be through having controls that aren't in place or vulnerabilities on their machines, allowing you to quickly and promptly address those. And I want to finish off with one final point, which hopefully has come across in what I've been saying today. But in the National Cybersecurity Centre's annual review last year, they said one sentence which really jumped out to me. So we have the information and tools at our disposal to defend ourselves. We just need to use them better. There is so much out there. It's difficult to understand and see what you need. And that's why working with a company like Grey Matter can make things so much more simpler. Now, as you can see on the screen here, a 64% increase in incidents reported to the National Cyber Security Centre. That's a significant increase in 1 year. An 18.5% increase from last year in the amount of exfiltration or extortion attempts of data, which is actually 327 incidents that were recorded. This highlights the fact that the threat very much exists, is very real. We need to take action to protect our data. And on that note, I will hand back over to Scott.
Thank you for that, Adam. Some stark statistics there. Certainly, insider risk still being top of the charts and a considerable threat to businesses. And of course, interesting numbers from the National Cybersecurity Agency as well. as I said at the sort of the beginning slides, threats are becoming more advanced. Cyber Essentials definitely helps improve your protection and your compliance. And Grey Matter and CyberSmart are here to help you every step of the way. Certainly from the Grey Matter side, we can help with any products that you might need in order to make it easier for you to manage the areas that are covered by the certifications and assessments. We can also provide a number of different services via Climb Global Services, our consultancy division, around helping you get maybe your M365 up to code, Intune policies, conditional access, anything around Azure Active Directory. And then, linking you up with CyberSmart to help you complete the certifications and also actively monitor and keep you within those guardrails as well. My contact details are there on the screen, plus a phone number if you do have any immediate questions or requirements. And of course, I'll open it up to the chat now, just for a couple of minutes if anybody has got any burning questions. I think we're all quite on there. So hopefully, like I say, if you've got any questions or any requirements or want to know a little bit more about CyberSmart, want any product demos, we can certainly get Lawrence or Adam onto calls with you to help you with your any requirements that you've got. Again, thank you to Adam and Lawrence for providing some details today around the CyberSmart ecosystem. And of course, thank you to all the attendees today. We look forward to speaking to you in the future. Have a really good day.